Welcome back to COUNSELLORS Media. If you are new here, please hit the subscribe and the like buttons and activate the notification bell. We at the COUNSELLORS Media will work round the clock to bring you varieties of quality contents, topics that matter, and contents that will help improve your life experience. We strive to create contents that will teach or educate our audience in their various individual pursuit of happiness, good health, fun, physical and mental health, and their general awareness, and above all, a calmness of our soul. Today, let's talk about love. My trip with a friend of mine, Nellie, to a love doctor. Please get yourself popcorn and a French wine and enjoy the story. Thank you for being here. My best friend Nelson, but I chose to call him Nellie. We grew up together. Went to high school and college together. As we graduate and gainfully employed, Nellie pops the question to his college sweetheart Tracy. I wasn't surprised that Tracy said yes. I mean, they have been together for a very long time. The engagement party was my favorite part. I mean, that night, boys were boys. We had a wonderful night and wholeheartedly wished Nellie and Tracy a wonderful life together. Surprisingly, at 6 a.m. the next morning, my phone rang and it was Nellie at the other end. Among other things we discussed, was Nellie wanting me to accompany him to a love doctor. Just like you, I was really surprised too. I mean, the engagement was just a night ago. The reality of serious commitment had finally crept in. My best friend needed my help. I said, sure, of course I will accompany you. Nellie booked an appointment. And within a week or two, the appointment was scheduled. Seated in front of my best friend and me, was a real doctor of love. I mean, we came with a bag filled with questions. No BS, I had my questions too. What really is love? How do you know the right one? What brings quarrels in a relationship? How to maintain trust and communication, and lots more. I mean, we came prepared, and the doctor, to my surprise, was even more prepared than we were. And so he started the lesson that changed my life and understanding about love. The doctor lectured Nellie and I, the principles and strategies of building and maintaining true love in a marriage, the tricks to a happily ever after we all crave. Lesson number 1. Be together for the right reasons, he said. Everything that makes a relationship work, and by work, I mean that it is happy and sustainable for both people involved, requires a genuine, deep-level admiration for each other. Without that mutual admiration, everything else will unravel. It's just a matter of time. It's useful to point out that love itself is neutral. It is something that can be both healthy or unhealthy, helpful or harmful, depending on why and how you love someone else and are loved by someone else. By itself, love is never enough to sustain a relationship, he concluded. Lesson number 2. Have realistic expectations about relationships and romance. There will be days or weeks, or maybe even longer, when you aren't all mushy-gushy in love, period. You're even going to wake up some morning and think, you're still here? That's normal. And more importantly, sticking it out is totally worth it. Because that too will change. In a day, or a week, or maybe even longer, you'll look at that person and a giant wave of love will inundate you. And you'll love them so much you think your heart can't possibly hold it all and is going to burst. Because a love that's alive is also constantly evolving, he said. It expands and contracts and mellows and deepens. It's not going to be the way it used to be, or the way it will be, and it shouldn't be. True love. That is deep, abiding love that is impervious to emotional whims or fancy. It is a choice. It's a constant commitment to a person regardless of the present circumstances. It's a commitment to a person who you understand isn't going to always make you happy, nor should they. And a person who will need to rely on you at times, just as you will rely on them. That form of love is much harder. Primarily because it often doesn't feel very good. It's not glamorous. It's lots of early morning doctor's visits. It's cleaning up bodily fluids you'd rather not be cleaning up. It's dealing with another person's insecurities and fears and ideas, even when you don't want to. But this form of love is also far more satisfying and meaningful. And, at the end of the day, it brings true happiness. And not just another series of highs. Lesson number 3. The most important factor in a relationship is not communication, but respect for each other. He told Nellie and me, as a psychiatrist, we get a lot of patients regarding all manner of family problems and misunderstandings. During the course of our correspondence with patients of all kinds and colors, we noticed a trend. We noticed that people placed far more importance on communications rather than respect for each other. People who had been through divorces or had only been with their partners for 5 to 15 years almost always talked about communication being the most important part of making things work. Talk frequently. Talk openly. Talk about everything, even if it hurts. And there is some merit to that, he acknowledged. But we noticed a rather more interesting trend, especially when dealing with cases of partners that have been married for 20 or 30 years or more. He said, when we talk to these people with 20 or 30 or even 40 years of married experience, they placed far more importance on respect for each other rather than communication as their real secret to a successful marriage. The doctor continued, that these people, through sheer quantity of experience, have learned that communication, no matter how open, transparent and disciplined, will always break down at some point. Conflicts are ultimately unavoidable, and feelings will always be hurt. And the only thing that can save you and your partner, that can cushion you both to the hard landing of human fallibility, is unerring respect for each other. The fact that you hold each other in high esteem, believe in one another, often more than you each believe in yourselves, and trust that your partner is doing his or her best with what they've got. Without that bedrock of respect underneath you, you will doubt each other's intentions. You will judge their choices and encroach on their independence. You will feel the need to hide things from one another for fear of criticism. And this is when the cracks in the edifice begin to appear. So, talk openly about everything, especially the stuff that hurts. If something bothers you in the relationship, you must be willing to say it. Saying it builds trust and trust builds intimacy. It may hurt, but you still need to do it. No one else can fix your relationship but you. He said, just as causing pain to your muscles allows them to grow back stronger, often introducing some pain into your relationship through vulnerability is the only way to make the relationship stronger. There can be no secrets. Secrets more often than not divide you. Learn to discern your partner's own shady behavior from your own insecurities, and vice versa. This may be very hard and will likely require confrontation to get to the bottom of it. But in most relationship fights, one person thinks something is completely normal and the other thinks, it's really grade A fucked up. It's often extremely hard to distinguish who is being irrational and insecure and who is being reasonable and merely standing up for themselves. Be patient in rooting out what's what, and when it's your big, gnarly insecurity, and sometimes it will be, trust me, be honest about it. Own up to it. And strive to be better. Trust is like a china plate. If you drop it and it breaks, you can put it back together with a lot of work and care. If you drop it and break it a second time, it will split into twice as many pieces, and it will require far more time and care to put back together again. But drop and break it enough times, and it will shatter into so many pieces that you will never be able to put it back together again, no matter how hard you try. Lesson number 4. A healthy relationship means two healthy individuals. A healthy and happy relationship requires two healthy and happy individuals. The key word here, individuals. That means two people with their own identities, their own interests and perspectives, and things they do by themselves, on their own time. A lot is made about sacrifices in a relationship. You are supposed to keep the relationship happy by consistently sacrificing yourself for your partner, and their wants and needs. There is some truth to that. Every relationship requires each person to consciously choose to give something up at times. But the problem is when all of the relationship's happiness is contingent on the other person and both people are in a constant state of sacrifice. Just listen to that again. A relationship based on sacrifices cannot be sustained, and will eventually become damaging to both individuals in it. Lesson number 5. Give each other space. Among the emails we received frequently, one of the most popular themes was the importance of creating space and separation from one another. Some people are afraid to give their partner freedom and independence. This comes from a lack of trust and/or insecurity that if we give our partner too much space, they will discover they don't want to be with us anymore. Generally, the more uncomfortable we are with our own worthiness in the relationship and to be loved, the more we will try to control the relationship and our partner's behaviors. But, more importantly, this inability to let our partners be who they are, is a subtle form of disrespect. After all, if you can't trust your husband to have a simple golfing trip with his buddies, or you're afraid to let your wife go out for drinks after work, what does that say about your respect for their ability to handle themselves well, What does it say for your respect for yourself? I mean, after all, if you believe a couple of after-work drinks is enough to steer your girlfriend away from you, you clearly don't think too highly of yourself, the doctor concluded. Number 6. You and your partner will grow and change in unexpected ways. Embrace it. One theme that came up repeatedly, especially with those married 20+ years, was how much each individual changes as the decades roll on, and how ready each of you has to be to embrace the other partner as these changes occur. Listen, he said to Nellie, one day many years from now, you will wake up and your spouse will be a different person. Make sure you fall in love with that person too. Your partner may like sausage now, but in a few years he might prefer steak. You can get on board with that. I'm talking about some pretty serious life changes, he noted. Remember, if you're going to spend decades together, some really heavy shit will hit and break the fan. Among major life changes people told me their marriages went through includes changing religions, moving to different countries, death of family members, including children, supporting elderly family members, changing political beliefs, even changing sexual orientation, and in a couple of cases, gender identification. Amazingly, these couples survived because their respect for each other allowed them to adapt and allow each person to continue to flourish and grow. You and your partner need to be the eye of the hurricane. Of the 1,500 responses I got from patients, I'd say about half of them mentioned at some point or another one simple but effective piece of advice. Don't ever stop doing the little things. They add up. Things as simple as saying, I love you, before going to bed. Holding hands during a movie. Doing small favors here and there. Helping with some household chores. Even cleaning up when you accidentally pee on the toilet seat. Seriously, someone said that. These things all matter and add up over the long run. This seems to become particularly important once kids enter the picture. The big message I heard hundreds of times about kids: put the marriage first. Children are worshipped in our culture these days. Parents are expected to sacrifice everything for them. But the best way to raise healthy and happy kids is to maintain a healthy and happy marriage. Good kids don't make a good marriage. A good marriage makes good kids. So keep your marriage the top priority. Lesson number 10. Sex is a very important tool in maintaining a good marriage as it matters a lot. He nodded in total agreement. That was the first time I discovered the truth about relationships. Sex is the state of the union. If the relationship is good, the sex will be good. You both will be wanting it and enjoying it. When the relationship is bad, when there are unresolved problems and unaddressed negative emotions, then the sex will often be the first thing to go out the window. But sex not only keeps the relationship healthy, as many patients suggested that they use it to heal their relationships. That when things are a bit frigid between them or that they have some problems going on, a lot of stress, or other issues, for example, kids. They even go so far as to schedule sexy time for themselves. They say it's important. And it's worth it. A few people even said that when things start to feel stale in the relationship, they agree to have sex every day for a week. Then, as if by magic, by the next week, they feel great again. Lesson number 11. Be practical, and create relationship rules. The common theme of the advice here was be pragmatic. If the wife is a lawyer and spends 50 hours at the office every week, and the husband is an artist, and can work from home most days, it makes more sense for him to handle most of the day-to-day parenting duties. If the wife's standard of cleanliness looks like a home and garden catalog, and the husband has gone 6 months without even noticing the light fixture hanging from the ceiling, then it makes sense that the wife handles more of the home cleaning duties. Number 7. Get good at fighting. The relationship is a living and breathing thing. Much like the body and muscles, it cannot get stronger without stress and challenge. You have to fight. You have to hash things out. Obstacles make the marriage. John Gottman is a hotshot psychologist and researcher who has spent over 30 years analyzing married couples and looking for keys to why they stick together and why they break up. What Gottman does is he gets married couples in a room, puts some cameras on them, and then he asks them to have a fight. He asks them to pick something they're having problems with and talk about it for the camera. And from simply analyzing the film for the couple's discussion, or shouting match, whatever, he's able to predict with startling accuracy whether a couple will divorce or not. But what's most interesting about Gottman's research is that the things that lead to divorce are not necessarily what you think. Successful couples as well as unsuccessful couples fight consistently, he said. And some of them fight furiously. He has been able to narrow down 4 characteristics of a couple that tends to lead to divorces or breakups. He has gone on and called these the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse in his books. They are as follows. Criticizing your partner's character. You're so stupid versus that thing you did was stupid. Defensiveness, or basically, blame shifting. I wouldn't have done that if you weren't late all the time. Contempt. Putting down your partner and making them feel inferior. Stonewalling. Withdrawing from an argument and ignoring your partner. I think when people talk about the necessity for good communication all of the time, a vague piece of advice that everyone says but few people seem to actually clarify what it means. This is what they mean. Be willing to have the uncomfortable talks. Be willing to have the fights. Say the ugly things and get it all out in the open. Number 8. Get good at forgiving, especially to each other, the love doctor said to Nellie. To me, he continued, perhaps the most interesting nugget from Gottman's research is the fact that most successful couples don't actually resolve all of their problems. In fact, his findings were completely backwards from what most people actually expect. People in lasting and happy relationships have problems that never completely go away, while couples that feel as though they need to agree and compromise on everything end up feeling miserable and falling apart. To me, like everything else, this comes back to the respect I emphasized earlier. If you have 2 different individuals sharing a life together, it's inevitable that they will have different values and perspectives on some things and clash over those things. The key here is not changing the other person. Please note, the desire to change your partner is inherently disrespectful to both your partner and yourself. But rather it's to simply abide by the difference, love them despite it, and when things get a little rough around the edges, to forgive them for it. A similar concept seems to be true in relationships. Your perfect partner is not someone who creates no problems in the relationship, rather your perfect partner is someone who creates problems in the relationship that you feel good about dealing with. And finally, pick your battles wisely. You and your partner only have limited fuck to give. Make sure you both are saving them for the real things that matter. Number 9. The little things add up to big things. Staying connected through life's ups and downs is critical. Eventually, your kids grow up. Your obnoxious brother-in-law will join a monastery and your parents will die at the very old age, of course. When that happens, guess who's left? You got it, Mr. and Mrs. Right. You don't want to wake up 20 years later and be staring at a stranger because life broke the bonds you formed before the shitstorm started. It's Economics 101. Division of labor makes everyone better off. Figure out what you are each good at, what you each love or hate doing, and then arrange accordingly. My wife loves cleaning, the doctor said to Nellie and me. No, seriously, but she hates smelly stuff. So guess who gets dishes and garbage duty? Me, of course. He beat his chest victoriously. Because I don't give a fuck. I'll eat off the same plate 7 times in a row. I couldn't smell a dead rat even if it was sleeping under my pillow. I'll toss garbage around all day. Here, honey, let me get that for you. On top of that, many couples suggested laying out rules for the relationship. This sounds cheesy, but ultimately, it's practical. To what degree will you share finances? How much debt will be taken on or paid off? How much can each person spend without consulting the other? What purchases should be done together, or do you trust each other to do separately? How do you decide which vacations to go on? Have meetings about this stuff. Sure, it's not sexy or cool, but it needs to get done. You're sharing a life together and so you need to plan and account for each person's needs and resources. One person even said that she and her husband have annual reviews every year. She immediately told me not to laugh, but that she was serious. They have annual reviews where they discuss everything that's going on in the household that they like and don't like and what they can do in the coming year to change it. This sort of stuff sounds lame, but it's what keeps couples in touch with what's going on with each other. And because they always have their fingers on the pulse of each other's needs, they're more likely to grow together rather than grow apart. I think this is brilliant and it will be a goal that I try to implement into my own marriage, Nellie said. Lesson number 12. Learn to ride the waves. 2 years ago, I suddenly began resenting my wife for any number of reasons, the love doctor said. I felt as if we were floating along, doing a great job of coexisting and co-parenting, but not sustaining a real connection. It deteriorated to the point that I considered separating from her. However, whenever I gave the matter intense thought, I could not pinpoint a single issue that was a deal breaker. I knew her to be an amazing person, a mother, and a good friend. I bit my tongue a lot and held out hope that the malaise would pass as suddenly as it had arrived, he said. Fortunately, it did, and I love her more than ever. So the final bit of wisdom is to afford your spouse the benefit of the doubt. If you have been happy for such a long period, that is the case for good reason. Be patient and focus on the many aspects of her that still exist that caused you to fall in love in the first place. If you can observe and implement those things I have said so far, I personally guarantee you and your newly engaged partner a blissful future ahead. The Love Doctor finally concluded. Thank you for watching my videos. Please don't forget to comment. Which of the lesson did you agree with most and why? Remember to subscribe and activate the notification bell to notify you as soon as we upload our thought-provoking videos. Thank you for being here.